I've just created a new account for the Sleepy Time Hotel, so I'm going to show you how to set up the account and use it. I start by going to InnService.net and I type in my username and password. And then I click Login. It takes me right away to the front desk page, but the first thing we want to do right now is go to the settings page and set up this account. Here we see the name of the hotel, which can't be changed, and the phone number that is associated with this hotel. This phone number is the number that guests will use to communicate back and forth with the front desk. First, we'll fill in the incoming call greeting. This is what a guest will hear if they call your phone number while they are checked in. I want the guest to hear some kind of instructions about what they can press in order to be redirected to different parts of the hotel. So I'll type in something like this. Thank you for staying at the Sleepy Time Hotel. To talk to the front desk, press 1. To order room service, press 2. To set a wake-up call, press 3. Sometimes it's useful to have this greeting repeat in case the guest missed what it said the first time. So I'm going to take this entire thing, copy it, and say again, and repeat the message. Now, right away, I'm going to scroll down to the redirect numbers. I've put in my message that the guest can talk to the front desk by pressing 1. So in redirect number 1, I'll type here the phone number that will connect the guest to the front desk. Also in my message, I told the guest that they can order room service by pressing 2. So I'll type for number 2 a phone number that will direct the guest to the kitchen or the bar. Finally, my greeting told the guest that they could set a wake-up call by pressing 3. So in 3 for the redirect number, I'll type the word wake up. And right away, before doing anything else, I'll go down and click the Save button so that I don't lose any of the work I've already done. Next, we have a check-in message. This is a message that will be sent to the guest as an SMS message when they are checked in as a guest on the main page. I want to type in some kind of message here that will help the guest remember that they're able to text or call this phone number in order to get help from the front desk. So I've typed in here, you have been checked into the Sleepy Time Hotel. At any time, you may text or call this number to contact the front desk. The checkout message is a text that the guest will get after they've been checked out. Besides a message thanking the guest for staying, you can also include things here like a link to your web page or instructions for how to make another reservation or a link where the guest can take a survey about their stay, for example. A web address typed into the check-in or checkout message will show up as a link on the guest's phone that they can simply tap on and be redirected to the link. Next, we have a few more settings down here at the bottom. The SMS forwarding number is a phone number to which all messages from guests will be forwarded at the time of their arrival. So if you have an administrator or a manager on duty, you can type in the phone number for that individual, and all incoming messages from guests will be forwarded to that person. Select your time zone from this drop-down list. The time zone is used both for sending guests wake-up calls at the correct time and also for logging the time at which messages were sent and received in the log. Make sure you click the Save button to save your work. Now here we also have a checkbox called Persistent Notifications. If this checkbox is unchecked, then when a new message comes in from a guest, the computer will make a pling noise one time and then stop. If persistent notifications is checked and the page is saved, then when a guest sends a message, the computer will continue making a plinging noise until the message is addressed. Finally, down here at the bottom of the page, you can create sub-accounts for this main account. For example, you might want to have a sub-account for different departments in the hotel who would like to get messages separately. To create a new sub-account, type in a username, password, and identifying name for the sub-account. For example, I'm going to create a sub-account for room service. The username and password can be anything you like. The identifying name should be a nice or friendly name that will show up in the subject of a message when it is sent to a guest. So I'll click Add as New Subaccount, and we can see here that this new subaccount appears in the list. I'm going to create one more subaccount here. Okay, our setup is all complete, so I'll scroll up to the top of the screen and go back to the home screen. The home screen has two main areas, an area for sending messages and an area for receiving messages. When a new guest arrives at the hotel, I want to add them to the list. I'll type in their first and last name, and also either a cell phone or an email address for the guest. Keep in mind that if the guest wants to receive wake-up calls, you need to have a cell phone number. I'll type in the room number so that I can remember which room each guest is in. I can also add any number of categories for this guest, with each category separated by a comma. For example, suppose that this guest is checking in as a part of a conference at my hotel. I might want to add this guest to the category of conference. And then I click the Add button. When I click Add, the guest is added to the list. And at the same time, the guest receives a text message that says, "You have been checked in to the Sleepy Time Hotel. At any time, you may text or call this number to contact the front desk." This was the message that we typed in settings as the check-in message. If the guest wants to now create a contact on their phone, they can do that. Or the guest can simply reply to this check-in message in order to contact the front desk. For example, here's what happens if the guest replies to the message asking for some towels. The computer makes a plinging noise indicating that a new message has come in. The new message is highlighted in green, indicating that it is a message that I haven't answered yet. The information given on the line here includes the guest's name, the date and time the message came in, the guest's contact information, the room number, and any categories that the guest belongs to. If you click on a message, the content of the guest's message is displayed below in the Their Message box. Your most recent message to the guest is displayed in the Your Message box. Once I've received a message, there are a couple of different things that I can do with it. One thing I might do is respond back to the guest immediately. To do that, I can type a new message in the Your Message box, and then click Send Your Message to Selected. The message is no longer green because now I've dealt with the message by replying to it. The guest receives a message that says towels are on the way. Now, let's suppose that you receive a message at the front desk that really should be sent to maintenance. Here we've received a new message from the guest. I click on the message and then go look at what it says. The guest has said, "My sink is clogged." I'd like to send this message on to maintenance. So, with the message selected here in the Received Messages box, I select Sleepy Time Maintenance from the drop-down list and then click Forward. The message disappears from my list. Let's log in as maintenance and see what happens. Maintenance has just received a new message. I click on it and I see that the message says, "My sink is clogged." The maintenance person can see that this guest is in room 101 and can now respond to this message. And the guest receives a message that says, "I am on my way to fix the sink." Now, notice that this sub-account also has the drop-down list of sub-accounts and the forward button here in the received messages. If the maintenance account has received a message that really should have been sent to room service, they can forward the message on themselves as well as the front desk. Now, let's go back to the main account for Sleepy Time Hotel and I'll show you one more feature. Let's add a few more guests to our hotel. Let's suppose that besides the conference, we're also hosting a wedding at our hotel. So here I have some guests signed in as a part of the wedding and other guests associated with the conference. Perhaps I want to send a message only to the guests who are associated with the wedding. Here I can type in a message body, and I can send this message to everyone who's in a particular category. Here I'll select wedding from the drop-down list. When I click Send to Category, everyone who's associated with the wedding will receive the message, but those who are associated with the conference will not receive the message. Keep in mind that any particular guest can be associated with more than one category simply by separating the categories with commas. For example, suppose that one of my guests is here for the wedding and also for the conference. I can add that guest to the conference, as well as make any other edits I want to make for that guest by clicking on the guest and then making changes down here below. When I click Save Edits, that guest's information will be updated. I can also send messages only to guests who match multiple categories. For example, suppose that I want to send a message only to those guests who are associated both with the wedding and with the conference. The combination wedding and conference appears in this drop-down list. So I can send a message to only those guests who are a part of the wedding and the conference by selecting this drop-down, typing in a message, and then clicking Send to Category. If I want to compose my own combination of categories of guests to receive the message, I could select Custom and then type in here whatever combination of categories I would like. You can also send a message to every guest staying in your hotel by typing in the message and then clicking Send to Everyone. Finally, suppose that some of my guests would like to receive a wake-up call in the morning. I can add a wake-up call at the time that I am adding a new guest, or I can set a wake-up call later on by editing that guest. For example, suppose that Christy Smith would like to receive a wake-up call at 6 o'clock the next morning. I click on her line, and then in the wake-up call box, I enter 6 o'clock a.m. And then I click Save Edits. We can tell that the wake-up call set was successful because in the line for Christy Smith, the time 6 o'clock a.m. now shows up. Keep in mind that guests can also set their own wake-up calls by dialing the number from which their check-in message came and pressing the button for the wake-up call. Remember that we had set 3 as the number that the guest can press in order to set a wake-up call. Let's find out what the guest hears when the guest calls the phone number.
Thank you for staying at the Sleepy Time Hotel. To talk to the front desk, press 1. To order room service, press 2. To set a wake-up call, press 3. Again, thank you for staying at the Sleepy Time Hotel. To schedule a wake-up call, enter the hour followed by the star key, then the minute followed by the pound key. successfully scheduled a wake-up call for 4:15 in the morning. Thank you. Goodbye.
In this case, the guest who was calling set a wake-up call for 4:15 in the morning. When I go back to the Send Messages screen, we see that that guest's wake-up time has been changed to 4:15 a.m. Finally, when a guest checks out of the hotel, select the guest and click the Delete button. The guest will receive the checkout message that you specified in Settings.